Okay, guys, we're going to get started. Thanks for joining us. We got a few people here too, some we haven't met before. So we got a great presentation. If this is your first time here, I think you guys might be splitting up, but if it's your first time, we're in this room right here to listen to Mitch. You guys are going to be listening to Maylee. She's got some great stuff in our breakout session that she's going to share with you. So,
Eric, you're muted.
Who's muted? Oh,
there you go.
Okay, all right. That was you muted all of you muted Eric too.
I muted everyone.
I was just explaining how this is going to go down. We're going to stay up here in this room for Mitch's presentation. You guys are going to be going downstairs with Maylee. She's got some great training for you guys on doing deals. So for both of you, especially the ones that are going to be in here, I just want to bring up one little thing that I was thinking about this morning, and that was like, when we do what we do, we're going to hear some great strategies from Mitch or whatever, but why are you doing it? You know, we're all entrepreneurs, right? We've heard of Simon Sinek, right? Start with why. Everybody's either seen his TED Talk or read his book, or you know what they're talking about. So I just was thinking about my why this morning and why we got into real estate investing. Some of you kind of know, some of you are just meeting for the first time, but Lynn and I, we jumped into life like fast. Like we met in October, got married in May, got pregnant 2 months later, had a baby 1 month before our first anniversary. And then we also bought our first property, and that became our first investment property. We never moved into it. We rented it out. The cash flow paid our rents and paid for the mortgage on that property. So that was really fast and furious. And then what I didn't share last time I was talking about that is that same year that we bought, we decided if we could buy one property, let's buy one a year, right? So the next year we bought another one. Then that same year, my dad died. He had a one and done massive heart attack. He was only 49 years old. So for me, I was 24 years old at the time. And I learned that his dad died at 51 and his dad died at 53. So me and my brothers are going, oh shit, it's getting 2 years younger every generation, 53, 51, 49. So we kind of like thought we may have an expiration date at 47. Right? And I just started my family. So part of my why for building the portfolio that we did was so that if something happened to me, I didn't leave her needing to work, pay for weddings, school, college, grandkids, vacations, all that stuff. I wanted assets and residual income coming in to take care of my family. So we did that kind of in a big way through our 20s and our 30s. And so I just wanted you guys kind of, while you're listening to some of these killer strategies, if you can connect an emotional why, and you've got passion and purpose and drive to do what you do, you're going to be more successful. If you're just saying, oh, it'd be nice to have some extra income, it'd be nice to do this, you're really not going to focus on it like you would if you have that real severe purpose of accomplishing something like your little family right here, right? So anyway, I just wanted to leave that with you. I'm going to have Maylee introduce Mitch, and we're going to get that class started up here. And then when she's done, we're going to take you guys downstairs. So Maylee, turn it over to you.
So I won't take long because that was a fantastic, story. And really, I think that that's what all of us originally, I hear talk to thousands of agents across the nation, and everyone that talks to me, and or just people in general, they always think, oh, I really want to get into real estate. So they think they need to get the real estate license, right? That's just a common thing. So then they get their real estate license, and then a lot of times are no closer to being an investor or having residual income than they did before. And so we call this a transaction treadmill, where I started about 5 years ago. So I had been running a very large solar company and alarm company in California. And it was doing well. It was fantastic. Unfortunately, though, life happens, right? And what you're talking about, it resonates so well with me because, 5 years ago, most people, if they knew me then, they'd be like, oh, you're such a different person now, right? It's just because life changes your life. But actually, that I was on a transaction treadmill, very much like agents. And in this fact that, you're constantly hustling for that next deal, right? And unfortunately, if another deal doesn't come and you don't close on a deal, then you don't have an income anymore, right? And you're stuck and your family doesn't have food and all those wonderful things. So I was constantly selling. And overnight, my left leg actually went paralyzed. And during that time, I was our only income and I was our family provider. And we were living in California and our expenses were just insane. So I was running 40 offices. And it hit me like just, a bolt of lightning. Pretty much exactly what you said was, holy smokes, I have spent 12 years of my life running a business that I can't be replaced, right? I'm building a business that if something happened to me, which it did, everything folds overnight, right? That is not a self-sustaining business. That's not something that, you can pass on to generations to come. That is something that just dies overnight. If you're the only person that can do your job, you're wrong, right? I made a mistake. And so, we ended up getting a foreclosure, we lost everything, we moved back to Utah. And this is not a horror story or a sob story by any means, because obviously I'm walking down and I'm awesome, right? But it wasn't. For 9 months, I was in a wheelchair and it was horrifying, right? But during those 9 months, I recognized that it isn't about obviously just me, but what can I do for my children? How do I create a passive income for them so that if something ever happens to me again, they're still taken care of? Because you never know what's going to come. Unfortunately, car accidents happen more often than not, right? There's so many horrifying things happen. And that's really what awoken me, right, to the idea of, oh my gosh, I need some type of real residual income. And so that's when I actually found your host today and your speaker today. I showed up to a webinar and sat in the back of the room like this, and I was all mad because, well, I thought he was going to sell me something, right? Which you did. But what was so fascinating was I recognized I knew what I didn't know, right? And by watching his presentation in 2 hours, I learned more in those 2 hours than I had the entire 12 years of running my own business, which first off, that shouldn't be true, right? Like, why, how can he tell me things in 2 hours that I should have known my entire career of being a business owner, but I didn't. And so it really made me sick, first off. So just warning you, you might feel a little like, why didn't I know this, right? You'll feel a little bit of that today, and that's okay. But then be excited, because this is just the tip of the iceberg of what you're going to be learning. So I'm really excited to introduce, obviously, your speaker today, because he has some really good things to do. So stay to the very end, because you're going to want to obviously hear all of it. Obviously, he's a great family man. He has 2 wonderful children, stepchildren, but they're fantastic. A wonderful husband, but more so than anything, he has helped thousands of people get off on their real estate investing career and just better agents so they can sell more properties. So he is willing to actually give you a book. He is a best-selling author, A Mindset to Millionaire. He's willing to be potentially giving out that book today if you stick around to the very end. And without further ado, welcome up, Mitch Nelson.
Hey guys, welcome. And to all those who are here live with us today, thank you for being here. I know it's kind of crazy getting together live these days, but I think you're going to get a lot of value out of this. Now, this is for you as agents. You're going to hear me talk about real estate investing. That's my background. That's what I do. But this is specifically for you guys as agents. My goal, and we're going to talk about some of your takeaways here in a minute, but my goal for you is that you walk away from this with an ability to go out and make more money without having to put in more time. We're going to talk about how to do that. We're also going to talk about how to get more repeat business as some agents want to go invest, right? And I'm going to share some skills with you today about how to go, start that process and start investing in real estate. Some agents will benefit. If you don't want to invest, if you're an agent that says, hey, I don't want to invest, I just want to go out and do transactions, well, you're going to benefit from this because you're going to understand how to work with investors. And one of those primary things that will help you as you start working with investors is decreasing the amount of time that you have as agents. We have, it's 5 to 10 years before we see a retail customer again, because that's kind of the cycle, right? But when we work with investors, we've got.
I sent the funnel to you in Facebook Messenger if you want to check it out later.
Sweet, yeah, I will.
So I don't know if they were talking to us, but with that, I want you guys to pay close attention, stay to the end, because we're going to blow your minds today. It's going to be awesome. So we've got a few things. We've got some financial strategies we're going to share with you. We got some real estate investing strategies we're going to share with you. We're going to blow your minds. It's going to be awesome. So stay tuned. Now, you're going to see a few disclosures like this throughout the presentation. Yeah, it is. Okay. You're going to see a few disclosures like this throughout the presentation. Basically, this is just the attorneys inserting themselves into my workshop. This disclosure says that I am not an attorney, I'm not an accountant. This isn't specific advice to anybody. Actually, I'm not an agent. That's my wife and I are an investor agent team. She's the agent, so all the agent stuff she does. But most importantly, this is just general information. This is just so you guys can see what's possible with your real estate agent business so you can go out and start making more money, right? So Maylee did a fantastic job of introducing. She started out as one of my students. My business, we're going to talk about business owners today. All of us are business owners as agents. My business is coaching. I teach people how to be real estate investors. I teach people how to be better real estate agents. And I met Maylee through that coaching experience, and we're going to bounce back and talk about how that team works. Now, I've seen a lot of my students do this kind of a one-man show, right? Where they are the investor and they are the agent, or they're the agent that works with investors, right? There's a lot of ways to do this. So kind of, look at this stuff through a lens of how can you apply it to yourself, right? So what to expect from this training? We're going to talk mainly about how to get off the transaction treadmill. As agents, we wake up every single morning unemployed. Even if we just closed the deal yesterday, right? We wake up unemployed because we got to go find that next deal so we can put food on the table next month, right? So how do we get off that transaction treadmill and just start having things happen like clockwork through a machine? We're going to talk about how to invest in real estate using other people's money. We're going to talk about doing fix and flips at scale with reduced risk, buying rental properties without using our own money or credit. Jeff and Lynn here, they're amazing examples of how to get that done. We're going to talk about tax and legal structure. And as business owners, we have some advantages, and we're going to talk about some of those advantages because as real estate agents, we qualify as business owners. So we can start taking those deductions in our lives. One of my favorite strategies we're going to talk about today is speed banking, how to pay off your debt in a fraction of the time. We're going to talk about the triple dip. This is one of the ways we get off the transaction treadmill. How do we triple dip? Well, if you're an agent and an investor, it becomes really easy because you're making money on every side. Right? As an investor for years, I struggled with the idea of, geez, I'm paying so many people. I'm paying title companies, I'm paying agents, and I'm paying all these different things. Well, one of the things I learned is if I vertically integrate my real estate business and I bring the agent in-house, my wife, right? I'm paying an agent, but that money comes back to me, right? And on the backside, I'm paying an agent, but that money comes back to me. So how can we vertically integrate our businesses without increasing the amount of time that we have to put in? Just cash more checks, right? Okay, so maybe you'll spend a little bit more time at the bank window as you're, cashing those checks, but that's all right. We're going to sell more houses, even if we don't want to invest. So don't leave early. These strategies can change your future as they did mine. Now, I want to start with a story. This story is about a young man who loved building cars from the ground up. He would find scrap metal and weld a frame together, and he'd do the sheet metal, bend the sheet metal for the body, and he'd do the upholstery himself. He'd build the engine himself, and these cars turned out beautiful. He'd drive them around town, and people would see him, and naturally they'd want to buy them. So he got a clever idea, right? I could start a business. I mean, how hard is it to break into the auto industry, right? So that's what he did. He started a business. His business model was he would take orders with down payments on these orders for cars. And he'd do all the work himself. He wasn't a business-minded man. He wasn't raised around business. So he was just I'll do it all myself kind of guy, right? Well, the problem was he got too popular. Orders started coming in that he couldn't keep up with, and down payments, and people, there's a long line and people were waiting. Well, eventually people got tired of waiting, and some of them asked for refunds on their down payments. Here was the problem with that. He was using the money from several down payments to work on a single car, right? So he didn't necessarily have the money to give back to the people that were asking for those refunds. Well, this got out of control. And eventually he had to close the doors on his business. He went bankrupt because he was too popular. Now, as business owners, how bad does that sound, right? If we had so much business that it bankrupted us and we had to be finished, right? That's a terrible reason to have to go out of business, but that's what happens to him. Well, he went back to what he knew. He went back to being, a mechanic and working in the field. He grew up as a farmer just to pay off some of his debts. And several years went by. He's a middle-aged man by now. Never really lost his love for building cars. So and he had some new designs. So he thought to himself, I'm going to try it again. I'm going to open another business. We're going to build some cars, beautiful cars for people. The only problem was he used the same business model that he'd used before. Now, if we do the same thing over and over again, what type of results can we expect? The same results. We're going to get the same results, right? So that's what happened. So when he went bankrupt a second time, Now, at this point, he thought to himself, you know what, I don't have what it takes to be a business owner. I'm just going to give up. I'm going to go back to working a job. Well, one day he found himself at a state fair, and he was wandering around the state fair looking at the different attractions and booths and things that they had for sale. And he accidentally wandered into the backside of the butcher's tent. Now, front end of the butcher's tent, you've got the nice cuts of meat for sale, right? Back end of the butcher's tent, it's a little different story. He saw a bunch of men dressed up in white lab coats with plastic aprons on, and a big long steel table. And at one of the steel table, there was some animal carcasses, right? And the first guy would pull up an animal carcass, start making some cuts on it, pass it down to the next guy, he'd make some cuts, all the way down to the end of the line where you had the last guy would pull down a sheet of butcher paper, stick a cut of meat on there, wrap it up, and push it to the front for sale. Now, the man marveled at this because he knew it would take a single butcher a full day to carve up an animal. But this group of guys were doing it in like 15 minutes. So the wheels in his head started turning, and he thought, well, geez, what if we replaced the meat with car parts and ran it backwards? Instead of taking something apart, what if we were putting something together? First guy would put a couple of car parts together, and next guy would put some more car parts on, all the way down to the end of the line until you have a finished car. Now, who am I talking about? Henry Ford. Henry Ford started a third company based on that idea. He called it Ford Motor Company. Now, Ford Motor Company's been around for 120 years, and it's one of the most successful auto manufacturers in history. And Henry Ford went down with the idea of inventing the assembly line and the modern manufacturing process. We know the history of what happened to Henry Ford. But the reason I start with this story is because what happened to Henry Ford that day when he was in the butcher's tent is something very similar that happened to me about 8 years ago. He changed his mindset. And that's what we're here to talk about today, is changing the mindset about the way we're doing things. Because we may be, hitting it hard and doing plenty of transactions, but we have no time to spend with our family. And the idea of growing past what we're doing now, it doesn't make logical sense. So we have to go back to the foundation. We have to completely change our mindset about the way we're doing things and take on the Henry Ford approach. Now, 8 years ago, I was 27 years old. I was working a job selling websites here in Salt Lake County. I would go small business to small business, trying to convince them to buy a website from the company that I worked for. And I was making about $40,000 a year, living in a 2-bedroom apartment. I was the average American. I should have been happy. 27 years old, average American, right? But I wasn't happy. And the reason is because earlier on in my career, I'd set some pretty lofty goals for myself. When I was 21, I said, you know what, by the time I'm 30, I want to be a millionaire. And by the time I'm 35, I want to make $1 million in a calendar year. And here I was 27 years old, much closer chronologically to that goal than I was financially. And I didn't know where to turn. So I decided I was going to start studying people who had done it. The way I got through high school was by copying other people, right? So I figured that if that worked in high school, it can work in life. Right. And I started studying everybody who I knew had made it, millionaires and billionaires. And I got addicted to this study. I went down to Target and I bought like 7 composition notebooks, line paper, and started taking notes furiously. I filled all 7 of the notebooks, started writing on scratch paper, got out of control. I was taking notes on everything. Like, Steve Jobs woke up and had Wheaties for breakfast. I'm like, okay, Wheaties for breakfast. That must be a millionaire thing, right? So I just literally everything. Got to a point where I realized I had to whittle this down to what was important. So I realized, a lot of the things that these wealthy individuals are doing, they're just like us. They got 24 hours in a day. Sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're sad, sometimes they're mad and frustrated and all the things. But as I was kind of whittling down my notes into a paper, I realized that there's one thing that set them apart, and it was the way that they think. Well, my notes became a paper, my paper became a book. I published my book about 5.5 years ago, about beginning of 2015, and it's called Mindset to Millionaire. Now, what Mindset to Millionaire talks about is the difference between what I came to call the employee mindset versus the wealthy mindset. And I want to touch on that a little bit before we get into some solid strategies. The first thing that I learned was that the employee mindset individual thinks in 2 currencies. Those 2 currencies are money and time. And for the employee mindset individual, money is a much more valuable currency than time. Now, this is obvious because we're all trained at a very young age. Public education, it teaches us how to be employee mindset, right? We were all trained to go trade our hours, something that we have, for $15 or $20 or $25. but I want you to try an experiment, okay? Just a mental experiment with me here. I know we're all business owners, we're all real estate agents, right? But do a mental experiment. Let's say you have a job, right? You make $20 an hour at that job. Go to your boss, pull a 20 out of your pocket, slap it on his desk and say, I want to buy one of my hours back. That's what you paid me for. I just want my hour back, right? He might giggle at you, right? Okay, you're kind of crazy, whatever, you know? Okay, here's another 20, that's $40. That's double what you paid me for. I just want 1 hour back. Now he's gonna look at you like you're nuts, right? Okay, here's $200. That's 10 times what you paid me for that hour. I just want one of them back. What can you do? Can't do anything, right? Because nobody on this planet can tack an hour onto the end of your life. Time is the only non-renewable currency we have. And we were trained at a very young age to trade it for $15 or $20 or $25. Now, the wealthy have a totally opposite mindset. They have 5 currencies that they think in. Those 5 currencies have a very important order to them. The first and most important is time, because time is non-renewable. You can't get more of it. It's the most valued by the wealthy. Then knowledge, relationships, credit, and money. You'll notice that money's last. It's the least important to the wealthy, and yet they seem to have the most of it. One of the things I learned about the wealthy is as they get those 5 in that particular order in their lives, they tend to have an abundance of all of them. Now, time's first, money's last. I think this is pretty obvious that that's a real thing, because it's the wealthy that create the jobs. They create the businesses that create the jobs, that hire the employee mindset individual, and the wealthy, they're shoveling the money over into the employee mindset saying, you guys take the money, we want the time, right? They figured out how to get more time by leveraging other people's time, right? So it's all about these systems that we're going to talk about. There's another thing that I learned about the difference between the employee mindset and the wealthy mindset individual. The employee mindset individual was taught one way to save. And in my opinion, I've never seen a wealthy person use this strategy. I call it the accumulation strategy. But every employee mindset individual was taught this as their only saving strategy, the accumulation strategy. And it's just an idea of creating nests, right? We have like an emergency fund nest. We have a 401k nest, right? We just put eggs in. We try to save up as many eggs as we can. You know, with a 401k, out of your paycheck, you know, your employer puts a little bit in your 401k every time you get paid. And over the course of time, we build up a pretty good nest of eggs. We had about 65 and a half. We're thinking, you know what? I'm feeling good about this pile. I think I'm going to retire. When we retire, we stop putting eggs in the nest. We start pulling eggs out of the nest. So we crack one every month. We crack one and we use it. Right? We get to 75. And we're thinking, oh, it's starting to dwindle a little bit. When we get to 85, we're thinking, okay, it's getting down there, but I think we're doing okay, right? Then you hit 95 and think, holy crap, hopefully I die before I run out of money, because this is going to be really uncomfortable in a second, right? There's a flaw in your strategy if your backup plan is to die. I'm just saying, right? There's a flaw in that financial strategy if your backup plan is to die. So that's a flawed strategy. The wealthy, they do something completely different, something totally out of the box. They just buy freaking chickens, because a chicken will lay an egg every single month, regardless of what they do. They could be retired. Guess what? Chickens still lay eggs when you retire. Chickens still lay eggs when you're sick. Chickens still lay eggs when you're out of town, because a chicken laying an egg has nothing to do with you. Now, of course, I'm not talking about chickens. What am I talking about here? It's a real estate workshop. I'm talking about real estate. I'm talking about assets, right? Do you know that a well-managed rental property will pay you even if you're sick? For more than 2 weeks out of the year. It's not like, hey, you could be sick for 2 weeks, but if you're sick for 2 weeks in a day, then we stop paying you, right? No, it doesn't. I've never seen a lease contract that says, hey, if the tenant's sick, you don't have to pay rent. Or if the landlord's sick, you don't have to pay rent, right? It doesn't work that way. You could be out of town for 6 months. A well-managed rental will still pay you. You could be dead, and a well-managed rental will still pay you. It has nothing to do with you, right? This is a legacy we're creating that we're passing on to our kids and their kids. So another thing that I learned, last thing I'm going to share with you, that I learned about the wealthy mindset individual is that almost to a person, they are business owners and real estate investors. Now, everybody on this call, everybody here today are business owners. We all are. We're real estate agents, right? That is a business. But and all the people that I had on the screen earlier, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos, all of these people are famous for the businesses that they own and that they created. But as I started studying these people and got deeper and deeper,
they're actually real estate investors too. Real estate must be a smart investment. We've heard that before, right? We preach that every day. Real estate's a smart investment. Why aren't we doing it then? As agents, why aren't we doing it? If it's a smart investment, so as we dig in, and when I first discovered this, I thought, well, sure, that's the case. Business owners and real estate investors, those two activities make a lot of money. So obviously, right? But as I started digging deeper, I realized, well, there's layers to it. One of those layers is taxes. Did you know that the wealthy pay less in taxes? We all know that. We've all heard that, right? What we're not told is that most of them do it legally, morally, and ethically. Now, how is that possible? Well, the tax law is 10,000 pages long. If the government just wanted everybody to pay 30% or 33% of what came in, then it would be one sentence long. Everybody pays 33%. But it's not written that way. It's written as an incentive program. And the wealthy, they understand this because they study the tax law. That's second currency, right? They've got this funny attitude. If I'm gonna pay into a system, well, darn it, I'm gonna understand it, right? So what the tax law says, in a nutshell, is if you're willing to create jobs and housing for people so that the government doesn't have to, we're gonna give you a break on your taxes. It's an incentive. It's to incentivize us, the business owners, to do something that's gonna help out the country as a whole. And that's what we do. So the wealthy, they pay less in taxes. Now, I could go on and on about taxes and mindset for hours. Those of you who know me could testify to that. But we're here to talk about real estate, yes? Let's talk about some freaking real estate. Now, one of the things that I have found that allowed Maylee to get off the transaction treadmill and allowed us to start building a business that could scale beyond our own measure of time is to start systematizing everything. Let me give you just a quick example of what we're going to dive into a little bit more here. The deal spotter system. The deal spotter system is something that Maylee and I created in order, and this kind of outlines our 5 work days every week. We need more leads, right? How can we generate leads for Maylee's real estate agent business and my real estate investing business without having to run 2 separate activities to do that? How can we combine that, make it one activity, and make money on both sides? Well, we created the deal spotter system. Basically, we look at every lead, every potential home as an investment first. And if it doesn't work as an investment, it becomes a listing, right? And so we've got this process that we pass it through every single step, and each step has a filter between it. If it doesn't pass the filter, it becomes a listing. It's not, we just drop it and don't do anything with it. We still make money on it, list it, right? So lead generation, we start by looking for people who need to sell. We start by looking for motivated sellers, people who are in bankruptcy, people who are going through foreclosure, people who are going through divorce. All of these are people who have problems where real estate compounds their problem, right? So we use public record to find these people. This is our Monday activity. And we start calling them and ask them, hey, I'm interested in your home. I'd love to make a cash offer. Any interest in accepting an offer? We get a yes or a no. The no's become a listing. We talk to them about that. Okay, well, let's get you as much as we possibly can on it. I'd love to list it for you. Let's go make that happen. The yeses, I'm open to a cash offer right now. Okay, well, it becomes step 2. And on Tuesday, anybody who said yes, we run all the numbers. And any of the ones that work, that the numbers pencil out, we're actually going to make money on, those pass the filter. Any of the ones where the numbers don't work become a listing. Hey, we crushed the numbers. This is going to be a low ball offer. Here's what we can pay you. No, you're probably not interested in that, but I've got an alternative for you. Why don't you just let me list your property and we can go make you as much money as you possibly can, right? And every step along the way throughout this process, we're either listing it or we're buying it. It's either an investment or we're going to make a commission on it, right? So these are the type of systems that I'm talking about. I want to share an example of how we did this in real life. So quick disclaimer, I'm going to share a real property with you. I'm not in any way saying you're going to find this deal or you're going to make this money. This is just one that we did that worked out for us, and I wanted to share it for educational purposes. Is that fair? Okay, let's do it. So this property is called Jordan Meadows. We have clever little nicknames for all of our properties. We call this one Jordan Meadows. It's in West Jordan, Utah. Here are the numbers on that deal. We purchased this deal for $250,000. We put about $50,000 into fixing it up. Our holding costs were $10,000. Now, I like to use other people's money. Keep in mind, I do 5 to 7 of these at a time. The only way I can do that is if I'm using other people's money. That's one of the ways that I scale my business, is leveraging my network, right? Then the possibilities become limitless. But if I'm using other people's money, there's only one of two ways that I can do that. Either I borrow the money or I steal the money. Which one do you think it is?
Which one?
Definitely steal. Yeah, that's what this meeting is. We're going to turn off all the lights in a second, take all your wallets and purses, go buy real estate. What we're going to find? No, we borrow it because we want repeat relationships. And the best way, let me tell you the biggest secret in real estate. Whether you're an investor, an agent investor, the biggest secret in real estate is creating wins for other people. That's it. How do I get other people to let me use their money? Create a win for them. Give them back more money than what you borrowed. Right? How do I get somebody to let me buy their house at a discount? Create a win for them. You can solve their problems. If they're going through bankruptcy and you can prevent that by taking their house and giving them a little profit, or if they're going through foreclosure and you can stop that foreclosure by buying their house, that's going to create a win for them and you're going to get a discount because win-win, right? So that's how we do this. So holding costs, that's basically the money that we gave back to the person who lent us the money in the first place to do this deal. Closing costs, that's commissions and marketing and other stuff, about 25 grand. I did round these numbers to the nearest 5,000 to make them easier. Total, all in, we were about 335,000. Our after repair value on this one was 380,000. So usually these fix and flips takes about 120 days to do. Millie and I don't do any of the work. We hire that out. We put about 3 to 5 hours of our own time into each one of these fix and flips. So in 120 days, our profit on this one was about 45,000 bucks. Now, who's super excited to learn how to make an extra 45 grand in 120 days? Yeah, I think all of us here would be pretty excited about that, right? It's an exciting thing. Now, who watches the fix and flip TV shows? It's a guilty pleasure of mine. Like I secretly watch it after Millie Father. I'm like, let's see what Chip and Joanna are doing today, right? No, but the one thing about the fix and flip TV shows, I think they give us a little bit of a blurred vision of what real estate investing is, right? They make you think that any guy with a hot wife can go flip a house and make 90 grand. There's a little more to it than that. There's some strategy that goes into it. There's some stuff that we have to do. So I've been around enough and I've taught enough people. There are a lot of funky ideas about how to go out and invest in real estate. In fact, there's even some dangerous ideas where people can get hurt if they do it. And what I see is, it's people who want to get into real estate investing. They're inspired, they're motivated by the people who are doing it, but they're looking at real estate investing through the lens of their employee mindset. So they're trying to apply all the employee training that we've had for years and years and years into the idea of investing. I've heard enough of these ideas, hundreds of them, but there's a few recurring ideas that I think are scary and I want to touch on. So basically, we're going to talk about 2 ways not to go invest in real estate. And I'm going to show you the way that we did it on this property and how this applies to us as real estate agents, okay? So the first type of investor, this is the move-in guy. This is the guy that says, hey, you made a ton of money on this deal. I mean, 45 grand, that's awesome. But you spent a lot of money on rehab. I bet almost half of that was labor. He'd be right, about 20,000 of that would be labor. That's why Millie and I don't have to spend hours and hours, right? We could be on vacation while our fix and flips are being done. But he's like, well, I would have just moved into it. I would have put that 20 grand right back into the profit margin, made it a $65,000 profit by just moving into it. And I would have done the work, on the house after my job and, on the weekends and that kind of stuff. And we'd turn it in 4 months and we just move to the next one. Well, I've got a few problems with that idea. The first one is, we want to try another experiment here, okay? I want you to go home to your significant other tonight and say, hey, babe, we've got a new business plan. We're going to move into one of these, and we're going to live there for about 4 months while we're working on it and fixing it up. And, just as it's getting pretty, we're going to sell it. We're going to move into another one of these. And this is going to be our life for the next 18, 20 years, whatever. What do you think their response is going to be?
I want to shower the gym.
I want to shower at the gym. I love it. So yeah, and even if that's not enough, the idea, or even if you're single, the idea of moving every 4 months is a little unrealistic. And so what I end up seeing happen with the moving guy is the 4 months turns into 6 months, and the 6 months turns into 9 months, and the 9 months turns into 12 months. Now, we were all super excited about making an extra 45 grand in 4 months. Who's more excited about making 45 grand a year? As a construction worker, full-time, because that's what it's going to take to get this place done, right? Living at the construction zone. There's no going home because this is home. Who's more excited about that idea? Not me. I'm more excited about that. That's terrible. Even more importantly, I like to do 5 to 7 fix and flips at a time. If my strategy is to move into each and every one of my fix and flips, what does that limit me to? 1. We've got a scale problem. Now, the reason I share this, my background's in investing, right? But the reason I share this is because I see agents doing the same thing in their businesses every single day. They're taking actions where they're only going to be able to do one at a time if they keep doing it the way they're doing it. If they don't change their mindset, they're, you know, and use systems that are going to allow them to do 5, 7, 10, 20 transactions at a time, they're never going to get past that 24-hour problem, right? So I don't want to be the move-in guy, right? Now, the second type of investor, this is the guy that lost a lot of money, or the gal that lost a lot of money in 2008, right? We've all heard that real estate investing is risky. We've got something in our recent past, 2008 crisis, right? That, oh, real estate's, tons of people lost money, right? I call this the debt investor. Now, let's take a look at the debt investor. The debt investor is that person that knows just enough to be dangerous. Right? They don't know enough to know that they don't know enough, but they know enough to be dangerous in real estate investing, right? They're the person that's just got their toe like dipped into the wealthy mindset. They've read like 1.5 Robert Kiyosaki books. Yeah. You know, so they look at this and they say, well, geez, we only need the money for the purchase and the rehab up front. That's 300 grand. Why don't we just, open the Google device, fix and flip money Utah, and up pops a list of hard money lenders. Who's worked with hard money before? I know you have, right? What kind of rates and terms have you guys seen on hard money? 2 points, 12%. How long do they usually let you have the money for? About 6 months. Okay, yeah, that's fairly average. So about 12% interest, 6 months, right? What happens with hard money? What happens if you go past 6 months? Are they totally chill? Like, I just didn't even get it. And pay me in your next paycheck, right? Not really. Not really. A lot of these guys are sharks. A lot of them have built into their business model. Well, if you go past the term, we'll just foreclose on the property. Now it's ours, right? So, and that's not to say everybody's like that. There's some good guys out there, but a lot of them are like that, right? Now, you might be looking at this saying, yeah, Mitch, but you said we could get it done in 4 months. So what's the problem? Well, the first step to becoming an educated investor is realizing that you do not have control over everything, right? So we have to build in safety nets. We have to build in plan B and plan C and plan D. Problem with the debt investor, and exactly what happened in 2008, they had one exit strategy. Sell it for more than what we put into it, right? There was no backup plan. That was what everybody was doing, and it was working. So, that was the plan. Now, here's the problem. I go back historically, as I'm reviewing whether or not I'm going to purchase a fix and flip, I go back historically and I look at the values of the fix and flips over the last 10 to 15 years. Well, in 2007, this house sold for $380,000. That's exactly what we sold it for, more than a decade later. But fast forward from 2007 to 2011, this house was worth $280,000. They took a $100,000 haircut. Now, let me ask you something. Is a 2008 type event going to happen again? Absolutely. Okay. Anybody know when? I need to know like the day and time, because it's like a 4-month window that I do these things in, right? No, we know it's going to happen again. None of us know when. So we have to prepare on each property as if it's going to happen tomorrow. Now let's pretend for a second that you're the debt investor, okay? And you go do this deal thinking, oh, well, we can sell it for 380. So the numbers are going to work. We're going to make 45,000. And then the next 2008 hits as you're holding the property, right? So now that cuts you bought it, you put all this money into it, that cuts your resale price down to 280. What are your options? What can you do? Okay, so we put some, let's say it takes 4 months to finish the construction. We put some tenants in there, cash flow the first month, now we're at month 5. Cash flow the second month, now we're at month 6. What happens in month 6? Our hard money calls. Our hard money calls, and I say, well, we just drove by that property you guys did. It looks beautiful. Great job. You put some cash flowing tenants in there for me. Thank you so much. It's mine now. Well, that sucks, right? We can't do that. So what else? What other options do we have? All we need to do is get this hard money guy out of the way. What are some options? What can we do? Refinance. Why don't we just go refinance it, right? We just take our $280,000 worth of collateral down to the bank and say, Mr. Banker, here's $280,000 worth of collateral. Can I borrow $335,000 against it, please? Why not? We're under collateralized, we're over leveraged, right? This is the problem that these investors ran into in 2008. This is why we all think that real estate investing is risky, because they were left with no exit strategy. Let's talk about the nature of money for a second, because did money really disappear in 2008? Were there a bunch of dump trucks driving around collecting everybody's cash and saying, hey, dump your cash in? They drove it to a giant field and there's a big mountain of cash. They doused it in gasoline, lit it on fire. Is that what happened in 2008? No. The nature of money is not that it's destroyed. The nature of money is that it transfers. More millionaires were created in the 2008 crisis than any other time in our history. And the reason is because money transfers. That means there was a small group of very smart, educated investors that knew what they were doing, that knew what was coming and knew how to react to it when it did happen, that money was transferred to, right? So we want to be those people, right? We don't want to be the debt person. We want to be the educated person. So let's talk about how we do it to protect ourselves from these kinds of eventualities. If you're not taking notes right now, and real estate real estate investing even vaguely interests you, you should start taking notes right now. So I'm going to give you the whole strategy. We fund every fix and flip property through a strategy that I call the debt equity blend. Okay, the debt equity blend has a secret ratio to it. That ratio is whatever the amount of money that you need to raise up front. In this case, it's $300,000. Raise 2/3 of that in debt. Okay, so we can even use our same 12% 6-month guy, our same hard money guy, but we're raising $200,000 from him this time. Now we need another $100,000 to make this deal work, so we're going to go look for an equity partner. Right, so we just start calling all of our friends who we know have $100,000 tucked between the couch cushions. Right, we all got friends like that, right? No, look, when I first started doing this, I was making $40,000 a year at my job, and all my friends, all the people I hung out with, because we're the sum total of the people we hang out with, right? All my friends were making $40,000 a year at their jobs. I didn't know anybody that could bring $100,000 to the table, so I could go do this deal. But I did learn something that changed my career forever. There's $28 trillion in retirement accounts in this country, and there's only 400 million people who live here. So there's a lot of people that have 6 figures in their retirement accounts. Now, 2 questions, 2 very powerful questions that I want you to write down. The first one is, did you know that you could use your retirement account to invest in real estate? A lot of people don't know that, but you can. Your retirement, your funds can be invested in pretty much anything with like 4 exceptions, and real estate is not one of those 4. The second question, if I could show you how you can double or triple your current rate of return backed by real estate, would you partner with me on my next deal? Think about what I asked you there. If I can show you how you can double or triple your current rate of return in your 401k or IRA backed by real estate, would you partner with me on my next deal? No. Most retirement accounts are indexed in mutual funds. On average, how do mutual funds perform? What kind of rates of return are we seeing on mutual funds?
4 to 6.
Let's be generous. Let's go 6. Okay. So 6% annualized. If I could double or triple that, you're going to listen to what I have to say next. Yeah, I'll listen to it, right? What's the second part of that question? Backed by real estate? What are mutual funds backed by? Stock. They're backed by stocks. Can stocks go to 0? How's Sears stock doing right now? Yeah, not good. 0, right? Can real estate ever go to 0? It's at least worth the dirt that it's built on, right? So real estate is a safer, it's a tangible investment, right? So wait a second, you're telling me I can make more money and it's safer? Absolutely. Are you going to listen to what I have to say next? All right, well, let's talk about it. Here's the deal, Lauren. Here's the deal that I've got on the table. These are the numbers, and if all goes well, we're going to split $45,000. Okay, so here's how this is going to work. Remember how I said the wealthier their business owners and real estate investors? Well, that dovetails pretty closely sometimes. I've started an LLC. I gave myself 50% ownership of that LLC. I put the deal in the LLC, and what I'd like to do is let's make your 401k the other 50% owner of the LLC. When all goes well, I'll take care of, I'm the educated one, I'll take care of managing all the contractors and that kind of thing. And when all goes well, you're going to make 22.5 and I'm going to make 22.5. Now let's do some quick math. What's your name? Dane, so some quick math here. Lauren put 100,000 in. When we got done with the deal, she got 100,000 back plus a check for 22,500. What rate of return is that? Well, just the actual return. Yeah. 22.5%. Now, usually we're doing these I put this in the actual column for a reason. Usually we're doing these in about 4 months. So if we annualize that, because remember that's 6%, which by the way, Dane, is that more than triple 6%? That's pretty good, right? But this was in 4 months. When we're talking about 6% for mutual funds, how many months are they talking about? Well, 12, right? So if we annualize that, that's 67.5%. This is where Lauren jumps out of her chair and says, absolutely, I'm ready. Where do I say? Hey, wait a second. You told me about that guy who lost all of his money because he was the debt guy. He lost all his money in 2008. What happens if 2008 happens again? I said, well, Lauren, I'm sure glad you asked. Let's go over this. So our low water mark, because of how this has performed historically, this property, is $280,000. That's what it could potentially drop to again. Probably not, but it could. Very low risk of this happening, but if it does, we're safe. Your money's safe, my money's safe, it's all safe. Because we have some options now that we didn't have before. You see, I only leveraged in debt $200,000. So you said, Matt, why don't we just refinance it? We couldn't before because we were over leveraged, right? But now we've only got $200,000 in debt. I can take my $280,000 property down to the bank and say, Mr. Banker, here's $280,000 in collateral. May I please borrow $200,000 against it? Now the answer becomes, because I have more collateral than I'm borrowing, right? So now we refinance out the hard money. He gets his money back from Mr. Banker over here, right? And now I have a loan with Mr. Banker for 30 years that I just make little tiny payments on. And these payments, just, a couple $1,000 every month or whatever. If I've got long-term financing, what can I do? I can rent it out. So when the market has crashed and everybody's losing their houses because they're losing their jobs to foreclosure and they have to rent, the rental market goes up. I've got a rental property that I could easily put tenants in. It's worth $280, so I can rent it out on that basis. Have a mortgage payment that has a basis of $200,000. Is there going to be cash flow? You bet. And what do Lauren and I do to ride out this storm? We split half the cash flow every single month. Well, all of Lauren's friends who left their money in mutual funds, how did mutual funds do in the 2008 type crisis? Right? So everybody's losing money over there. Lauren and I are making money for as long as it takes for the value to come back to 380. Then we sell it. She makes 22.5 and I make 22.5. Worst case scenario, you make more money. How do you feel about that? That's pretty awesome, right? And because of just the way we structure the deal, it takes it from being risky to being incredibly safe, right? We mitigate the risk through one of the currencies. Actually, the second currency. What was the second currency of the wealthy? Knowledge. What seemed like a risky deal 5 minutes ago doesn't seem so risky anymore because knowledge changed, right? When knowledge increases, behavior changes. Now, I want to talk about one of my favorite topics for a second. I want to talk about me. Right?
Really quick, why didn't you do that deal? Why didn't you do the $300K hard money? Save money.
Oh, you were on the phone when I talked about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Because I'll just recap it real quick. So 300,000 all hard money, right? What happens if 2008 happens? Historically, in 2011, this property dropped from 380 to 280. I'm stuck, right? I borrowed 300, I'm underwater, I can't refinance it. So that's how so many investors lost money. Uneducated investors lost money in 2008 for that reason. So we use this to keep us safe. We use this to protect ourselves. Absolutely. No,
Yeah, I get that because I went through all that.
Lynn's like, this is ringing true for me. So Dane, how much money did I put into this deal? Zero. Okay. But I made $22,500 as well. Are you mad about that, Lauren? By the way, we did this deal together. Are you mad that I also made money? I put zero in, but I invested something. What I invest? I told you we only put 3 to 5 hours on a 4-month project, so it's not time. What did we invest? Knowledge, that second currency. I got news for you guys. The smartest person in the deal will always make the highest rate of return. Guess what my rate of return is? If I invest zero and make $22,500, what's my rate of return, Dane? like a third grader when I say this. I made infinity % on this deal. And I like making infinity % on every deal if possible, because that is the highest rate of return you can make, right? So, this is incredible stuff. And by using a currency, the second currency of the wealthy, and investing that currency, I'm investing a much more valuable currency than the rest of these people are. Now, Lauren, you put in money. That's the least valuable currency. We've established that. You okay with your return?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything. You have to wire some money, and that's it, right? Sign a contract, wire some money. Look, my money lenders made incredible amounts of money, but excluding Lauren here because I know you're an educated investor, but let's say you weren't for a second. The reason Lauren isn't already doing this is because she doesn't have the knowledge. If she knew what I knew, she'd be out doing this herself, right? But she's willing to come play this game with me because of that. She doesn't know how to do it, I do. Right? That's the difference. So this is good stuff so far. You guys liking this? Okay,
Even
cool.
if I do, Mitch, time too.
Time.
If I don't want to spend
How do we
3
protect our
hours.
time? Yeah,
Man,
exactly. Another reason that I don't like to use my own money on my own deals
yeah.
is because I can make it go further. Rather than doing one deal that I put my own money and my own time into, I can give Jeff some money and he can go do a deal, and I can take Lauren's money. I can go do a deal. Now, how many deals am I in? 2. I've diversified my currencies, right? So by utilizing these strategies and by increasing our knowledge, we can get ourselves off of this transaction treadmill where it's just one dimensional. We're doing one thing, and that one thing, if we don't do it, we don't make any money, right? There's so many ways to make money in the vertical that we're in. We need to start opening our mindset a little bit. It's limitless, the amount of money that we can make. So let's look at this from an agent perspective for a second. A triple dip here, okay? Now, Maylee is my in-house agent, we'll call it, right? My in-house agent. So Maylee comes in and purchases this property for $250,000. We get a commission. We paid the seller, but we get a commission out of the property we bought of $7,500, right? And then we do the project, we put it back on the market. Maylee sells it for $380,000, and her commission is $11,400. That's $18,900 that we added to the $22,500 that we made as investor. We almost made the entire profit of the entire deal ourselves by triple dipping. And we didn't do anything more than we were already doing in our process, right? An extra 3 to 5 hours spread out across 4 months to make sure the contractors are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Right? And it all comes from a place of just simply being educated on the process and having systems in place. If you tried to do this the employee mindset way, how much time would you spend in, doing the framing yourself, doing the sheetrocking yourself, doing the painting yourself, all those things? We don't have to. Let's systematize it. Let's make this kind of money. It's awesome. Now, I want to jump back to something we were talking about earlier, mindset, right? The wealthy, you'll never see a wealthy mindset individual trading their money or trading their time directly for money. Not worth it. The exchange rate just sucks, right? So they're not going to do it. So what they have to use something to replace their time input. What they use is business systems. Now, as you make the trek from the employee mindset to the wealthy mindset, you're going to find yourself using hundreds of business systems a day. Now, there's a lot of business systems out there, and we live in America. I mean, we've got some of the greatest examples of business systems in the world, right? One of my favorites is the McDonald's Corporation. McDonald's is the #1 holder of real estate in the world. They own more of this planet than any other individual or entity. Right? Isn't that crazy to think about? McDonald's owns more of the planet than anybody else. They're the #1 restaurant by revenue in the world. They feed 1% of the world's population a day. And here's the thing, you walk into any McDonald's anywhere on the planet, and you'll notice one thing. Most of the employees are under the age of 20. It's the largest real estate empire in existence, and it's run by teenagers. How is that possible? Systems. There's a reason why a Big Mac in Lehigh, Utah, and a Big Mac in Paris, France taste the same, because it's systems. Look, let's take off our real estate agent hats for a second, pretend like we're a different type of entrepreneur, restaurateur, right? We want to open a restaurant. We're entrepreneurs. We want to open a restaurant. So you could be one of two types of restaurant owners. You could be the person that's there every morning at like 6 a.m. opening the door, right? And pulling all the chairs off the table, starting up the grill, and the employees and customers come in, and employees legally have to take breaks, right? So we have to cover for them when they're on their break. So we're doing the fry shaker thing and we're flipping the patties and all that stuff. And then, the employees and the customers eventually go home and we're there sweeping the floor and putting the chairs back on the table and locking up. Now, if that's our business model, how many restaurants can we run? One. We do that same thing every day our entire life. That's it. We max out at one restaurant. But if we take everything I just said, write it down into a very detailed process, go down to Kinko's, spend $5 copying off this system and get 4 or 5 or 10 binders or whatever, and take one binder and say, okay, you're in charge of my Draper restaurant. You're in charge of my Sandy restaurant. You're in charge of my West Jordan restaurant. You're in charge of my South Jordan restaurant. How many businesses can I run? How many restaurants can I open if that's my model? Limitless, right? There's no limit. There's no limit to the scale that we can run our business at if we start utilizing systems and follow the examples of some of the greatest entrepreneurs in history, right? So hopefully we understand that. And now, going back to the business systems, we'll use hundreds of them a day, but there are 4 that are more important than any of the others. In fact, these are so important, we gave them their own name. We call these the 4 pillars of wealth, okay? And the 4 pillars, these systems are taxes, banking, business, and real estate. Now, that may sound overly simplistic, these 4 systems. Let me tell you something about the 4 pillars of wealth. If you learn how to use those systems to your benefit, you can buy anything you want. You want an apartment building tomorrow?
Sure.
You can have one. And a lot of people, I say that, and a lot of people are like, how can I have an apartment building tomorrow? I got like $100 in my checking account, my credit sucks. Well, that's the employee mindset way of acquiring things. Let's talk about the wealthy mindset way of acquiring things. And it doesn't just have to be assets like apartment buildings, it can be liabilities too. And we can figure out how to leverage the 4 pillars of wealth to buy liabilities. I bought my dream car with the 4 pillars of wealth. Now, the lawyers don't like it when I talk about my dream car, right? So let's talk about an average vanilla run-of-the-mill car that we would be buying. Brand new one. What's an average vanilla car? Right? But it works. It scales in any direction, right? So what's an average vanilla car? Honda Civic. What are those? About 20 grand for the mid-range package, about 20 grand, maybe $300 a month if we finance it. Now, I have a question. How many people in here ever heard from like their grandma or a teacher or something, the best way to buy a car is to pay cash for it? We've all heard that, right? Now, I want you to raise your hand again if you believed it when you heard it. I did. When my grandma told me the best way to buy a car is to buy it cash, I believed her. You know why? Because I was starving for financial knowledge, because they didn't do a good job in public education of teaching me about finances. So when grandma said, hey, the best way to buy a car is to buy it cash, I'm like, that makes sense, right? I didn't go any further than the surface. I'm just like, grandma said it, so it's true. But let's reframe this for a second, because the wealthy, every transaction the wealthy look at is an investment, right? So Sherry, I'm going to pick on you for a second, okay? I've got an awesome investment for us to go do, okay? All you have to do is you give me 20 grand. I'm going to take it for 5 years and I'm going to go do a thing. And then I'll bring you back a sum total of 10 grand. Is that a good investment? But it's shiny. It's awesome. Why would you pass on that? No, it's 20,000. I'll bring you back 10 over 5 years. No, right? Of course not. Of course we're not going to do that. But that's what we do when we pay cash for cars. We know we're investing in something that's only going to depreciate. So how can we turn that around? Let's just pick one of them. There's a real estate workshop. Let's take the real estate pillar. Okay. How about we save up the cash for the Honda Civic? It's in the Honda Civic account, right? We saved up the 20 grand. Instead of taking that down and giving it to the dealer, how about we go find the Honda Civic property? We could just start calling people who are about to get foreclosed on and say, hey, are you interested in selling your house? Well, I'd love to take over your payments and get you out of this foreclosure process. Here's how this is going to work. You got one or two options. Bank's going to take your house. They're going to destroy your credit with a foreclosure market. That's 7 to 10 years. before you'll be able to apply for a mortgage again. Or you could turn the house over to me instead. What I'm going to do is I'm going to catch you up on your payments. How far are you behind? About 20 grand? Okay, so 20 grand will catch you up on your payments, right? And that will stop the foreclosure from happening. You know, you're still going to have to move out. You're going to turn the title over to me just like you would have with the bank, but now that foreclosure mark's not going to go on your credit. And even better, I'm going to make your payment every single month from here on out. So your credit's actually going to increase faster. 2 to 3 years, you'll be able to buy a mortgage again. Now, somebody in that situation that has those two options, like, which one do you think they're going to pick? The better one for them, right? 2 to 3 years rather than 10 years of not being able to get into a house, right? So they sell it to you, you catch them up, you put your Honda Civic money towards catching them up on their payments, put tenants in there, rent it out, right? Cash flow is about $300 a month, okay? And now we have the Honda Civic property set up. Let's go use someone else. Let's use the bank's money. Let's 100% finance the Honda Civic, $300 a month payment, right? Link that payment to the same account that the tenants put their money in. And that payment's just made every month from our cash flow. Now our Honda Civic money has purchased an asset that funds our vehicle, our Honda Civic that we want, right? At the end of 5 years, we have a paid for car, the loan's paid off, the tenants paid it off, right? We still have the Honda Civic property. We still have the cash flow from the Honda Civic property, and we still have the 20 grand that we invested in the first place. Where's the 20 grand at? Equity. So we have all the things and a free car, right? Versus the employee mindset, we could spend 20 grand on something that's worth 10 in 5 years, right? The only difference is knowledge. Okay. So we can use these 4 pillars to do anything we want to do. Now, I want to talk about a couple of other things really quickly here. Let's talk about taxes and business for a second. So what I see is there's a lot of agents out there who treat themselves like employees when it comes tax time, right? They treat themselves like W-2 employees. Did you guys know W-2 is the most expensive way to pay your taxes? This is why all of the working class complain that the rich don't pay their fair share. Because they are being charged, they're living their life in a way that's the most expensive way. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but here's this seems kind of interesting to me. Who pays for our education, right? We pay our taxes and some of that money goes towards education, but who directs those funds? The government, right? The government pays for education and they give us this education, and in that education, they teach us one way to make an income. And that's the most expensive. Go get a job. That's the most expensive way to pay your taxes. That's how the government makes money, right? Seems like kind of a conspiracy to me. I don't know. I'll let you guys decide. But look, if we're treating ourselves like a W-2, here's what's happening. We're making $100,000 in income. The government off the top with a W-2 takes 30 to 33% of your gross income with W-2, right? So $30,000 immediately goes to taxes. You've got about $70,000 in expenses every year. You know, you got house payments, car payments, cell phone payments, you got kids, soccer practice, food, all that stuff. You're spending about 70 grand a year. What's left over at the end of the year? Zero. Nothing. We're making 100 grand a year as an agent and we got nothing to show for it at the end of the year. Anybody feel like that? Right? Like it's going out as fast as it's coming in, sometimes faster than it's coming in, right? Let's just look at if we were to set ourselves up as a business owner, structure like a business owner would to run our agent business. Business owners are taxed differently. You see, they get the income, we do the same amount of work, sell the same amount of houses, 100,000 a year, right? But see, business owners get to take what's called deductible expenses first. So let's talk about those deductions for a second. If you're a successful real estate agent, are you going to be using your house sometimes to do work out of? There's a deduction. Are you going to use your cell phone for work as an agent?
I'm not successful.
Right? You're like, okay, right? Cell phone. Obviously, as agents, we're nonstop on our cell phones, right? There's a deduction. Our cars. Right? As agents, we use our cars all the time. There's a deduction. Now, what about the kids? How do we write off those freaking kids, right? Well, not very many people know this because they don't take the time to study the tax law. But you can actually hire each one of your minor children under the age of 18 to work. This works for grandkids too. You can hire for them to work in your business and pay them up to $12,000 a year tax-free. your minor children, right? Under the age of 18. So now, each one of them, yeah. So now the 12-year-old becomes the vice president of shredding paper, right? The 7-year-old becomes the director of taking out the garbage, right? We're giving them responsibilities and we're paying them $12,000 a year because it's just another tax deduction that we can take advantage of. Now, as responsible parents, are we going to give a 7-year-old a debit card with 12 grand behind it? I don't think so, right? So we'll hang on to that. You know what? When it comes time for school supplies, guess who pays for it? They do. They have a job, right? 7-year-old has a job. Why would he pay for it? So we swipe for school supplies, and now we're buying school supplies with pre-tax dollars, not post-tax dollars. When it comes time for soccer practice and volleyball camp, who pays for it? They do, right? Do kids eat? A little bit, right? So they contribute to the consumption of food in the household. Why don't they contribute to buying the food in the household as well? Now each kid's taking a turn buying groceries, and now we're buying groceries with pre-tax dollars rather than post-tax dollars. The way that we structure it makes all the difference in the world. So now we're taking $70,000 worth of deductions. Business owners are taxed on what's called their adjusted gross income. W-2s are taxed on their gross income. Business owners are taxed on their adjusted gross income, or AGI. The equation for that is simple. It's your gross income minus your deductible expenses. In this case, that puts us at 30 grand. So the government's going to take their 30 to 33% of that 30 grand, which is 10,000. How much is left over in this case? $20,000. Who wants to save 20 grand on the taxes this year? That's pretty exciting, right? And maybe you're thinking, well, I'm not quite up to 100 grand yet. I'm like halfway there. I'm making 50. Okay, so this is scalable. You don't have to be rich to do this. Like, let's scale this down to 50 grand. Anybody want to save 10 grand on their taxes this year? That'd be awesome, right? Make 25 grand a year, fine, save 5 grand. I'll sign up for that, right? All it takes is understanding the strategies, understanding the systems you have to use in order to run your business more efficiently. If you're hitting your head against the glass ceiling, there is another level. It's time to level up. You just need to understand how to get there, right? You need to surround yourself with people who are doing it. You need to plug in to an education system that is going to help you understand. And that's exactly what I do. In fact, let's talk about why you're here for a second. We are Team Limitless. We are a group of incredibly wealthy mindset agents and investors. And in this group, we share everything. We share deals that we're working on. We share, Dave and I just a couple of days ago, I was talking about a deal that I've had on the market for a little while. He's like, I'm a buyer's agent, I'll bring you a buyer, right? We're just collaborating on every level, whether it's bringing money to deals for, to collaborate on investments, whether it's bringing buyers or sellers to the table, whether it's bringing properties to wholesalers or buyers to wholesalers. This is what we're doing. The sum of your net worth is directly related to your net work. We recognize that. So we meet on a weekly basis to collaborate on these things. Now, I've been around the country doing what I'm doing today. This is what I've done coaching for the last 6 years. I've been around the country. I've been around the world. I've talked in front of groups as big as 2,500 people, as small as one person. And, traveling around, I've seen other groups that do similar things, but they charge for what they do. I've seen 100 grand, 75 grand, 50 grand, 40 grand. We don't do any of that. We have one bar for you to be a part of Team Limitless. One bar. And that's a bar for knowledge. You have to be educated, right? You have to operate at the same level. We don't want to be towing like 20 people behind us that are still out doing the onesie-twosie thing, right? This is the next level. We want you to be a part of it. If this is what you want to do, then you need to talk to us because this is next level stuff, okay? Now, I talked about my coaching, right? This is my real estate investor catalog. These are the classes that I teach. Each of these classes are recorded and online in about 5 to 6 hours each. I'm teaching about how to find off-market deals. How valuable is that as a real estate investor or as a real estate agent to be able to go out and, or either really investor or agent, be able to go out and find off-market deals. I'm talking about using other people's money, the wealthy mindset. All of this stuff is going to help as agents. I'm talking about wholesaling, right? Dan, you're a wholesaler. You get this stuff. Tax and look, but even if an agent doesn't want to be necessarily a wholesaler and do what you do, does it help if they're going to bring you buyers? Does it help if they understand your business a little better? So maybe somebody who's taken this wholesaling class that isn't I don't want to be a wholesaler, but I want to understand it so that I can make money off of the people that I bring to date, right? So important, right? Normally, this is something that I charge an incredible amount of money for. I've charged up to 20 grand for this stuff before. Right now, I'm selling it for $4,997, 5 grand, right? But you guys don't have to pay anything, because here's the thing. There's multiple currencies, right? If you want to pay me to have my education, I will take your $5,000 check right now. But what I'm looking for and why you're here today is because I'm looking for a different type of currency. I'm looking for the third currency. I want to grow my team. I want more relationships. I want more wholesalers. Dane, I need 3, I'm not kidding here. I'm not acting. I need 3 fix and flips yesterday, right?
You got 'em right now, so I'm buying 'em.
Bring them in, dude. That's that one in West Valley, actually, we're very interested in. So stick around. We want to talk about that one. But being a part of this group, I've got people I can go to. Now, how nice would it be to be plugged into a group of 25 different people that once a week are coming up to you, Dana, I need properties. So many properties. How'd you like to increase your level of business to that level? Incredible, right?
That'd be great, right?
Absolutely. So I'm not asking for any money today. What I'm asking is for a commitment. Plug in. Plug in. I will give you my real estate investor education. You can have it for free. But I need you to plug into this group. Part of that is becoming a part of our brokerage. Come join us. Let's go do deals together. Let's make an incredible amount of money together. The networking, the people you're going to meet, the education itself is incredible. Now, we've got some other incredible aspects to Team Limitless, and I'm going to let you guys hear from Jeff for a second because he does a way better job of describing it than I do. Jeff, come up and tell them what Team Limitless is all about, my friend.
All right. Anybody learning anything new? You guys like what you're hearing? How about you guys on Zoom? Awesome. It's all good stuff. I mean, we are looking to just build our team. We call ourselves Limitless because we have an abundant mindset. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right? We want to surround ourselves around people that are constantly trying to increase their knowledge base. And when we network with people that know things that we don't know, I could probably learn something from you. You could learn something from me. And now our minds just expand. So I'm going to go over this really, really quick because we do a whole nother class. In fact, tomorrow at 1:30, we go into more depth on what our team does and what we have to offer. So I'm just going to go through it really quick, kind of a bullet point kind of thing, so you guys can kind of see what we do. So I mean, I'm just reading this. We got weekly group training calls. We do in-person meetings. We learn from the pros. Maylee's down there doing a training right now. We do breakout sessions. So we got multiple things going on at the same time. We learn from each other. We do CE credits. We bring in professionals. We bring in people from other industries to learn from, as well as those that are on our team that are actually doing deals and collaborating. We like to network, and Lynn and I have been doing this for 30 years. So we have a few things that we like to share with you too. And we record all these trainings too. So we got that to share with you guys. We want to help agents become better agents. Too many agents are just pigeonholed into this mindset of just doing transactions that, I mean, are you all agents in here? Are you surprised how many agents don't even invest in the products they help other people buy and sell? It blows me away. We started in the investing world and then became agents later, but it just blows me away that how few agents actually invest in their products. So we want people to become better agents. We want them to learn from the top agents in the field. So we do a lot of mentoring. We have personal one-on-one coaching for the newer agents, help them get started. Newer agents are promised a lot of things when they get their license, and what in reality it's like crickets when they're really looking for somebody to help them out and hold their hand. So we network a lot. You know, we do weekly local interactions. We've got a global network that's expanding as we speak. We're moving into 5 more countries by the end of this year with the brokers that we're with. We do private mastermind groups. And the culture and the collaboration for me is the biggest thing. I mean, just hanging out with people that think like we do. I mean, it's kind of like that group or club mindset, right? You want to associate with people that think like you do. And that's what we're looking for, is we're looking for people that think like we do. And we're bringing on a lot of agents because of that. So we have a lot of transactional support. You know, I mentioned the personal mentor. We've got access to people all over the country that are doing hundreds and hundreds of deals a year that, I mean, you'd be able to reach out to, whether it's on workplace or their cell phone. The way that we interact is just limitless as well. So we got transaction coordinators, and then, like I said, we've got global support online with tens of thousands of agents. So we also provide all the tools that the agents need. We have a CRM product that any agent can go and buy. It's like $500-600 a month, but we provide that for all of our agents at no additional cost. So the lead communication does automatic text, automatic emails. You get your own website. We have a lot of investment analysis tools, and then we got transaction management programs as well. And we're constantly adding things. When we release our Achieve Today curriculum, it's going to be just like what we're talking about right now times 1,000. It's going to be pretty awesome. So some of the group benefits are that we offer group health insurance. Do you know like 40% of real estate agents don't even have health insurance? It's a big deal. We offer discounted stock. We actually get awarded stock for being producing agents. And as owners and stockholders in the company, we share in the revenue from the company as well. It's just different than you'll see in any other brokerage. So we have the ability to get paid like a broker without all of the liability and the risk. In fact, when I moved to this office, I thought I was going to get my broker license, and I didn't really need the brokerage that I was with until I found out the extra job I was going to be taking on and the additional liability I was going to be creating for myself. And that's when I made a switch to where we're at right now. So Lynn, I think this is my wife, Lynn. Some of you weren't here when we started, but she's going to come up and kind of tell us a little bit about the last year and a half or so since we've been moved over here.
Well, I think it would be nice to know who Jeff and I are. So this is our office. Real estate has made it so we could buy this office for cash. We could remodel it with cash. We own over 40 rentals. We won a top 500 award for 2019, top 500 real estate agents award in 2019. So we're also producing agents. So we're not just investors. We started investing when we were in college. We actually used creative financing to buy our first property. So we're totally in that world. Jeff was the first rent to own sign guy that used to see like sign guy rent to own. We had, the yellow signs all over the valley about 15 years ago. So he's always been really creative and teaching people how to invest. So we've absolutely loved real estate our entire time together, which is, we've been in real estate for about 29 years together. So I am actually a 4th generation real estate agent. So I really understand the real estate world. My mother used to say that whenever grandma came home, whenever her mom came home with steak dinner, she knew her mom had a closing. So that was, and so, I watched them, make so much money or learned about them making so much money, but none of them ever had anything, and so for us to buy real estate and to invest in real estate as being agents has been a way for us to create a legacy for our family. So I watched my mom, she worked with Century 21 in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. If you're familiar with that beautiful area, everyone's kind of swarming there now. She worked for Century 21 on a 70-30 split. And I remember she was making about $300,000 a year, which was a lot of money back 25 years ago. And she went to her brokerage and said, hey, I'm wondering if there's any way that I can get a better split because I'm giving you about $100,000 a year, right? And John Butler up there, he's a really big agent up there. He's like, I'm sorry, our brokerage, we have a lot of overhead. We can't pay you anymore. And she's like, you know what, this sucks. So she saw a better model, and that was Keller Williams. Keller Williams actually had something called profit share, right? So she actually started a market center up there. I watched her create a very successful market with Keller Williams up there. So I've seen brokerages grow. I've seen models that people have said they're never going to work, actually become the biggest brokerage in the world. And that would be Keller Williams. So it's the biggest market share, right? So anyway, we decided we are going to buy this building. We're going to start our own brokerage. And we found the model that you're seeing here, this EXP model. And we actually started doing business with other people like us. And that would be Mitch and Maley. They look outside the box. We're entrepreneurs. We work together. We collaborate. Our culture is absolutely phenomenal. And that is what we'd like to tell you a little bit more about today. We actually are able to get stock within the company, which is really awesome with different production levels that we do. We're able to actually become icon agents with the company and get our entire cap back in stock, which is really awesome. So we've been with EXP for almost 2 years with Team Limitless, and we have almost $250,000 in stock in our company, which is more than we ever had with the old brokerage we were with. But
Which was zero.
we had zero. But anyway, that's just a little bit about us, and I really get excited about it and talk really fast. So, and is it back to you?
Yep.
Okay.
Hey, but before I give this back to him, he's going to talk about this is one of my favorite strategies that you talk about, this next one or whatever. You guys weren't here, but when I started the meeting, I was talking about how important it is to know why you're doing what you're doing. If you have a purpose and a passion and you're driven by something, you can accomplish more than you can if you can. So one of the things I mentioned was when we were very, very young, our first year together, we bought our first property. We never moved in it. It became our first rental property. And at that point, we were just like, God, if we can do one property, why can't we do one a year? So I should be buying our 30th property this year. I mean, if people just bought one property a year, I think they'd have a pretty good retirement, right? But our portfolio reached double that 15 years ago because I kind of developed a why. And as I mentioned, you guys heard me say, my dad passed away when he was very young. And I discovered that the age of my grandpa and my great grandfather were all within around the age of 50. And so that became my purpose, my passion and my drive was to create a legacy for my family. And the opportunities, we use the word limitless a lot because it's true. I mean, there are no limits on, knowledge, abundance. We don't have a scarcity mindset. We share everything. And when I started collaborating with other people that thought like I did, I learned 100 times faster, right? And so that's what we're looking for is people that kind of think the same way we do, that we can network with and we can grow with. And I'm going to let Mitch take this back and talk about speed banking.
Which is my favorite.
Yeah, you guys are gonna love speed banking. So I promise to wrap this up fast. We're about at time. So let's talk about a strategy. A lot of people don't know this. 1/3 of our lifetime income goes to taxes. 1/3 of our lifetime income goes to interest. The average person is left with 1/3 of their lifetime income to live on their entire lives. So how can we talked about taxes, we talked about how to increase that income with real estate. How do we keep more of that wealth? Well, let's talk about the interest side for a second. Speed banking is an incredible way to pay off debt in a fraction of the time, whether that's personal debt or real estate debt. Now, quick disclosure, this is an advanced financial strategy. I've seen people go out and try to do it off of this little 10-minute explanation that I'm going to give you. That is not enough. I have a whole class that you can have for free just by being a part of Team Limitless. That's 5 hours long that goes into great detail on this strategy. So let's talk about it for a second. In order to do that, I need to set up kind of the average American model. So we're going to talk about that for a second. Average American household brings in about 60 grand a year, and we're taught to take that and put it into checking and savings, right? That's where we all store our money because that's what we were told to do. That's back to employee mindset. We're just doing what we're told to do. You know why the bank wants their money in checking and savings? Because the banking law calls those accounts deposit accounts. And it also says that the bank can use the money that's in their deposit accounts to go out and extend loans to other bank customers and make interest, and to invest in other markets and make money for the bank. The benefit to us is very, very small on using a checking and savings account. All of the benefit belongs to the bank. In fact, I think the checking and savings do us a little bit of a disservice because it keeps us on a cash basis. And when we're on a cash basis, we're subject to what's called cash segmentation, that feeling of my cash is just going everywhere, right? I got my savings account, my 401k, my checking account, and all my debts all over the place. I got credit cards, and I got 3 car payments and a house and all of this stuff. And it's just everywhere, right? You kind of feel like this after a while. But the thing I don't like about this model is that cash segmentation makes us paycheck to paycheck every single month. And look, that'll scale with you because taxes go up, right? And I just want to point out on this savings, that's anything that is the accumulation strategy, right? That's your 401k contributions. That's your money you're putting on top of the fridge for a rainy day. That's your vacation fund. But average person's putting money away into several spots, right? But at the end of the day, it's a zero-sum game. It's zero cash flow. I've got news for you. The wealthy focus on cash flow before they focus on anything else, right? The employee mindset, all we're focused on is that top number. How do I get that top number up, right? But what the wealthy are focused on, not just the top number, they know that a great way to increase your lifestyle is to increase your income. But it's not just about increasing the income, it's about increasing the cash flow as well. So at a zero-sum game, this isn't something that I want to do. Okay. I want to explain this to you. Let's dive into really what speed banking is. And to do that, I want to start by picking on somebody who's never seen this stuff before. This is their first time seeing this presentation. Matt? All right, I'm going to pick on you, Matt. So you owe me some money, okay?
Okay.
Just hypothetically. And I'm going to charge you interest on the money you owe me, but I'm a nice guy. I'm going to let you pick your interest rate. Here's the rule. You get to pick one of the interest rates that's on the screen right now. So we've got a 21% over here. We got a couple of 6%. So really your choice is between 21% and 6%. What interest rate do you want to pay me?
6%.
Sure? Did you find an answer?
You as the bank?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Does this feel like a trick question?
I feel like
A
you're.
little bit.
But I don't know.
But see, this is my point, is this is what the bank does to us. They just flash some pretty numbers at us and you're like, I'll take the lower one, please, right? So let me give you another example. If I told you that 32 degrees was the freezing point of fresh water at sea level, is that a true statement? I'm seeing some nods, yes, yes, yes. Celsius. Change my answer. See, we know that 32 degrees Fahrenheit and 0 degrees Celsius is the freezing point of fresh water at sea level. What happens if I do this? Which one's hotter now? Wait, one's hotter than 32? How is one hotter than 32? It's a lower number.
It's the unit.
Oh, it's the unit of measure. Guess what? That's what the bank's doing to us. You see, here's what I'm talking about. Anything called a loan, by definition, is one directional, meaning you pay it, and that's the end of your relationship. You can't dip back into it, right? And it's amortized interest. That's a whole other scale than simple interest, which is what lines are. Now, and lines are revolving, so it gives us a little flexibility. Meaning, revolving meaning if we got a maxed out credit card, because a credit card's an example of a line of credit, we could make our payment, and that's going to open up a little bit of room, right? We call that room leverage. We can take that leverage in the form of our little piece of plastic down to the gas station, swipe and buy some gas. When's the last time you ever swiped your mortgage to buy gas? Not going to happen, right? We can't do that because loans are one directional. So let's talk about, I get a lot of questions on what's amortized interest. Well, let's look at an example of amortized interest. That little $200,000 house that we had up there that this family bought. Let's say this is you buy that $200,000 house, you get a mortgage on it, 6% mortgage, 30-year mortgage on $200,000, about $1,200 a month. So you make that first payment. You get your statement back and it says, thank you for your payment of $1,200. Here's how we allocated it. $250 went to principal, $950 went to interest. Now, does that look like 6% to anybody? Does that look confusing at all? You call the bank and you're like, wait a second, you said 6%. And they're like, well, it actually is 6% because 6% of 200,000, right? But if you look at it, it crisscrosses halfway through. So the very last payment over here will just be the inverse. You'll make a $1,200 payment 30 years from now at your last payment, and 950 of it will go to interest or principal, and 250 will go to interest. So it evens out. And you're like, oh, whew, I thought you were ripping me off for a second, right? Well, here's what I don't like about that. How many people do you know that actually make it 30 years on a single mortgage? Want to know what the average American does? They either refinance or buy something new a quarter of the way to their loan, whether it's a car or a house or whatever the case might be, right? So what that means is that most Americans are there, paying mostly interest all the time, because if we refinance, it puts us back at the beginning of the amortization table. We buy something new, we're in a new loan, we're at the beginning of the amortization table. Most of us are paying mostly interest our entire lives. Now, if we just take a little 4-year snapshot, 48 months of $1,200, about $57,000 we'll pay towards our house. Well, if you run the calculation on the interest and the principal, you'll only reduce your debt. You'll pay them 57 grand, you'll only reduce your debt by 12,000 bucks. The other $45,000 goes into the bank's pocket as interest. Does that sound fair to anybody? Then why are we doing it? I'll tell you why. Because we didn't ask the questions. We signed something we didn't understand, because that's how we learned how to do it in our employee mindset, in our employee education, right? We didn't ask the questions, we didn't do the math. Well, let's do the math together. Okay, let's look at some other opportunities here, or some other perspectives here. Let's look at the cash flow perspective. Remember, cash flow is king. The wealthy look at cash flow before they look at anything else. So, Matt, when we make a $1,200 payment on our mortgage, even on the first payment, $250 of that was principal. Now, can you dip into that $250 worth of principal and go buy some shoes? Why not? Principal is yours, right?
Well, now I just went into my equity in the home.
Which is imaginary. You can't buy anything with that. Oh, unless you refinance
Yep.
and put yourself back at the beginning of the amortization table. There you go.
Yeah.
See this game that the bank's playing with us? Yeah. So let's look at this. 100% of that payment, regardless of how much is principal and how much is interest, the most important perspective is cash flow. From a cash flow perspective, 100% of that disappears. So I'm going to ask you again, Matt, would you rather pay me in a way where 100% of the cash flow from your payment disappears, or only 21%, and the principal portion you can reuse immediately?
Did the line of credit?
You'll pay me 21% interest instead of 6%?
Sure.
Because from a cash flow perspective, all of the payment disappears. Okay, so 2 rules, and then we're going to apply what you just learned back to that average American model. Okay, 2 rules. Number 1, lines are better than loans for all the reasons we just stated. Okay, rule number 2, the wealthy don't use cash as currency. That's why they don't have to use checking accounts. They don't live on a cash basis, right? The wealthy use cash to lower their debt. They use it as velocity. Anytime they get cash in, it goes to the line of credit, that lowers their balance. That means they're paying less interest anyway, right? But that creates leverage in the line of credit that they can use to pay bills and buy stuff. Very simple. Those 2 easy rules. Let's apply those 2 rules to this average American family and see what happens. So now that this family understands it, next month they get paid, they bypass the checking account, and they throw it all at their line of credit. That lowers their line of credit, but it does something really cool right away. The bank wanted to see a minimum payment of $600 on that credit card every single month. They just gave the bank $5,000. Are they good? Oh, they well exceeded that minimum payment, right? The bank's happy with them, okay? So they don't have to, they're gonna do this every month from here on out. They no longer have to budget for that minimum payment because the nature of just storing their cash in the line of credit takes care of the payment for the bank. So that's $600 immediately that goes back into their cash flow, right? Also, I think you all know how I feel about the accumulation strategy. We don't have to elaborate on that for the sake of time. Don't do them. The accumulation strategies, the nests, right? We just don't do them. So that puts $2,000 back into our savings or back into our cash flow, right? So now we've got $5,000 in, $3,000 going out with mortgage, car, and lifestyle. Notice lifestyle stayed the same. And that puts $2,000 into our cash flow. Well, let's graph what happens in the line of credit, right? The first month we put our whole paycheck in, it smushes the debt, right? And then over the course of the month, we've got expenses and lifestyle that comes out, $3,000. But we keep making money and we keep spending money. It looks like this. It stair steps down, 5,000 in, 3,000 out, all the way down to 0. Easy math here, $12,000 in debt, attacking it with $2,000 a month of cash flow. 12,000 divided by 2, 2,000, 6 months. What this family thought was going to take 7 years to pay off. That's the standard payoff on a credit card, is 7 years. It took them 6 months without getting a raise at their job and without changing their lifestyle. Right? Incredible. This is awesome stuff. So the bank's looking at them, they're saying, man, you're really good at this debt stuff. You're using a lot of it. You're paying even more of it off. We're going to give you a credit limit increase, right? If you've ever been a victim of a credit limit increase, you know they happen all the time. You use your credit really well, the bank's going to trust you with more money. Because we're not doing the savings account thing anymore, this is now our emergency fund. The bank just gave you $10,000 for your emergency fund. Now, I don't know about you, but I never caught a call from the bank like, hey, you saved like a champion. Here's 10 grand for your savings account, right? Doesn't happen, but it will if we behave like wealthy mindset individuals, okay? Now, we know as wealthy mindset individuals that our lines of credit are only for assets or emergencies. The mistake the employee mindset individual makes is they go spend on stupid stuff like boats and cars. Let's use the 4 pillars of wealth for that stuff, right? Our lines of credit are for assets or emergencies. So there's our emergency fund. Now we've got a problem. We paid our line of credit down to 0. You can't pay a credit card below 0. So our income now is just going to start piling up in our checking account. We don't want that. That's the employee mindset account. So what can we do? Well, you ever get those little checks in the mail from like Discover Card, says balance transfer check on it? You're like, what am I supposed to do with a blank check from Discover Card? I know I'll get in trouble if I start writing checks, so I just rip it up and throw it away, right? Well, we can actually start transferring that really expensive debt that's over in the loan side over to the line of credit so we can start attacking it. Here's the rule. Whatever the amount was you paid off in your line of credit, in this case it was 12 grand, write that number on the check, $12,000, principal only, and address it to whoever holds your mortgage, right? We'll work on the mortgage first. Okay, Wells Fargo, they send it off. And the Wells Fargo clerk gets it's like, oh, Sherry paid an extra $12,000 to her mortgage, principal only. So I put it in the computer. As far as Wells Fargo is concerned, it's the same as cash, right? You know, all you've done is you transferred the debt, $12,000 worth of principal from your mortgage over to your line of credit so you can keep doing the speed banking strategy. Well, we do the same thing, we get the same results, right? Attacking this, it should only take 6 months to pay it off. Numbers haven't changed, it's 6 months to pay it off, right? So we pay off $12,000 worth of mortgage principal in 6 months without getting a raise at our job and without changing our lifestyle. Let's do some quick math here and look at how this looks, right? Remember when we were doing it the way that the bank wants us to do it, we gave them 57 grand over the course of 4 years to lower our mortgage principal by $12,000, and they pocketed 45 in 4 years, right? With a 21% credit card, 21% annual interest, $12,000 times 21% annual interest. We did it in half a year, so divided by 2, $1,260 in interest. We never stopped to do the math. We just took it at face value. They want us to take it at face value because they've made it really pretty to steer us along the path that they want so that they can make more of our money, right? But if we stop and do the math, we approach this from type 2 currency, from the knowledge perspective, from a wealthy mindset perspective, we realize there's a better way to be doing things, right? So if we can pay 2 of these off, or 2 of these off a year, right? We do that process 2 times a year. Well, that whole mortgage gets paid off in 5 years without getting a raise at the job, without changing the lifestyle, right? So now we paid off the credit card in 6 months, we paid off the mortgage in 5 years. We don't have a mortgage anymore, we don't have a mortgage payment anymore. So that money goes for the mortgage payment, goes back into cash flow. And now we're attacking the next thing with even more velocity. Velocity curve gets steeper. So now we attack the car, $12,000 left on that, right? Should take us about 6 months when we don't have a car loan anymore, we don't have a car payment anymore. Now we're debt free. In the total of 6 years, this average American household paid off 30 years worth of debt just simply by bypassing the amount of interest that they had to pay every month, by utilizing tools that are readily available at the banks we use. They just steer us into different products because those products make them more money. We understand how to use the tools. We can use the tools that are going to save us more money, right? So 6 months for the credit card, 6 months for the car, 5 years for the house. We're debt free in 6 years. Let's go to a decade. We say, let's just extrapolate this out to a decade. Now we're debt free. Here's one of the reasons I love real estate. It's leverageable. I could take this paid off house now and take it down to the bank and say, Mr. Banker, I would like a HELOC, please. And he gives me a HELOC on the equity of my house. Now I have a $200,000 line of credit, home equity line of credit. We can use that for speed banking. Remember, it's for assets and emergencies and debt. If we don't need debt, well, and we don't have any emergencies, let's go buy some assets. Remember the Honda Accord account or the Honda Accord rental where we just called a homeowner that was about to lose their house to the bank and negotiated that? Why don't we just do that 10 times? 20 down payments we'd have with that. That's 10 down payments of 20 grand. That's 10 rental properties that we could pick up just off that home equity line of credit, right? Now we've increased our cash flow by, let's call it $400 a month on each one of those properties. Now we're at $4,000 a month in cash flow added to the $3,800 that we picked up simply by paying off our personal debt. We're at $7,800 a month in cash flow. Well, if we do the math, we're paying off that home equity line of credit that we use for the down payments in 2 more years. Now we're at year 8. We acquired 10 rental properties, paid off all of our personal debt, and we're only at year 8, right? And this is one strategy, not multiple strategies that we could be running at once. So let's take it to 10 years. We pay off the first rental property. We pay that off in about 13 months with that cash flow. Because we don't have a mortgage payment anymore, we paid off the previous owner's mortgage that we were using. Now that extra payment goes back in our pocket, back in our cash flow. We're paying off the next one even faster. Now we're at 10 years. We paid off all of our personal debt, acquired 10 rental properties, paid off 2 of them, all without ever getting a raise at our job or changing our lifestyle. This is incredible stuff, and I want you guys to be able to take advantage of this. Now, we're at the end of this thing, and always by the end of these workshops, I see it's always a split crowd, right? There's always people that are looking at this like, This is way too much. I just want to go back to what I was doing, right? They feel kind of like this at the end of this thing. And that's okay. I know we need like 98% of you not to do this because the 2% of us want to go be wealthy, right? Now, there's also kind of an in-between attitude, right? Where it's, it's the curious person. Like, wait, this is really cool stuff, but I have some questions. What about my cap? I already capped in my other brokerage, and what about that stuff? And what happens to my pending transactions? I've got like 4 deals going on right now, and I'm scared to tell my broker I moved. Like, I've heard it all, right? That's okay. Actually, you'd be surprised. I've got a very positive answer to all of your questions. So if you're the curious baby, let's have another conversation. Let's keep talking. In fact, we're going to be having another meeting tomorrow going in more detail on the stuff we've talked about today, right here at 1:30. Same links, same place. And you may just be the happy baby where you're like, this stuff makes a lot of sense. I'm ready to go. And if that's you, you're who we want to talk to. So stick around. Let's get you rolling. Let's make you part of Team Limitless here. The next steps, let's continue the conversation. Get back with the person who invited you down. Let's book a one-on-one. Let's get you guys plugged in. Let's get you plugged into the workshop. You can start seeing the value that we have downstairs while I'm up here, talking to everybody who's here for the first time. The people who are actually plugged into Team Limitless are downstairs learning about how to become better agents. We do this on a weekly basis, networking, all the things. So make sure you're a part of it. Obviously, there's no cost to that. We're not charging any money for any of this stuff. Just come be a part of it, right? Plug in and be a part of it and make a commitment. Guys, that's all of the time I have for today. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Awesome. That's it, guys. Lynn and I didn't know it was called speed banking, but over 20 years ago, we did exactly that. I found out that she had secretly paid off some of our real estate, and I was like kind of bummed about that because I couldn't get that money back. It's like, what do you mean you paid off the mortgage? So what we did is we refinanced our primary residence with a HELOC because when you own a lot of real estate and you have other businesses, you got to have reserves, right? You got to have quick access to cash. So my comparison, you're paying off a mortgage, I can't get that back. Well, it just kind of like we stumbled into brilliance, just got lucky, right? We'll do the home equity line of credit because I can take that cash reserves, I can throw it at my mortgage, and I can always get it back. Now, one thing happened in 2008 that made that so I had a new balance. I had a new thing that happened, right? I had hundreds of thousands of dollars in lines of credit that just got closed or froze. So my plan B, C, and D disappeared, right? So now we have a different balance of lines of credit and cash just to allow for that, kind of like his example of, what's the worst price this house has ever sold at? What if it could happen again type of thing? So our balance is a little bit different, but yeah, we're just very fortunate to have stumbled onto that speed baking concept a long time ago, and it certainly benefited us. So thanks for coming. And it looks like we have some pizza, and sorry for you guys that are on Zoom, but we'll be back here tomorrow. Same link that you're watching this one on for at 1:30 tomorrow to talk a little bit more about the brokerage. For now, I'm going to sign off though. See you guys.
That's so hard.